Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a very careful look at the source material we have concerning the life and the deeply tragic end of former NFL player Phillip Adams.
Yeah, and we should say right at the top, this is an incredibly sensitive topic.
It is.
So our approach here is going to be rooted entirely in the facts as they're presented in the sources, with a great deal of respect for everyone involved.
Exactly. Our objective is really to move beyond the headlines and just meticulously follow that factual path. His biography, the immense physical toll of his career, and then the really severe medical findings that came to light after his death.
And by doing that, we hope to present the full context that the sources provide for the terrible sequence of events that unfolded.
So for you, the goal is to synthesize this difficult narrative. We want to connect the dots that the documentation lays out for us. His athletic career, the chronic injuries, the psychological strain, and finally, that neurological diagnosis.
It's really the only way to grasp the scientific and medical explanations that have been put forward to understand what happened.
It's a look at the hidden costs. So let's start at the beginning. The foundation of his life and his college career.
Okay.
Phillip Matthew Adams was born July 20, 1988, in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Oh.
And that town, his hometown, will become a central location in this story later on. In high school at Rock Hill High, he was a standout athlete, not just in football, but in basketball, too.
And that signals, that kind of raw talent and innate competitive drive that professional scouts are always looking for.
Right. And that athleticism took him to South Carolina State University. He played cornerback there for the Bulldogs from 2006 to 2009.
Yeah, and his path in college is pretty typical for a high-potential player coming from a smaller conference, not a major Division I school.
He wasn't a starter right away.
No, not at all. In his freshman year, he was mainly a backup, and he was thrown right into the fire on special teams.
Which is a real proving ground.
It is. High impact, high speed. But even in that limited role, you could see the talent. The sources say he recorded 12 tackles and, incredibly, 2 interceptions. He showed a nose for the ball right away.
So as you'd expect, his role started to expand pretty significantly after that.
It did, year after year. By his junior season, he was a key part of that defense. His stats really show that he was becoming a dominant player.
What do those numbers look like?
Well, he had 48 tackles, which put him 6th on the team. But, and this is the critical part for a defensive back, he led the team in 5 interceptions and 9 pass deflections.
Those are the numbers that really pop for scouts, right?
Exactly. Those are the numbers that jump out on tape. It shows he's not just willing to hit, but he has the coverage skills, the ball skills to disrupt a passing game.
So that strong junior year really set him up for his final season in 2009.
It did. That season solidified his draft potential. He was named a first-team All-Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference player.
And for those who might not follow college football that closely, getting first-team honors in any conference is a big deal.
A very big deal. It's league-wide recognition of his dominance. His stats were strong again, another 48 tackles, 3 more interceptions.
And there was a standout play mentioned in the sources from that year, too.
Yes, a great anecdote. He scored a touchdown on a pick 6, an interception returned for a touchdown against Norfolk State. So his college years were just this continuous upward trend. He showed the speed, the agility, the aggressive mindset you need to even attempt to make it at the professional level.
Okay, so that brings us to the NFL, a completely different world. Adams enters the league in 2010. He's selected by the San Francisco 49ers.
Right, but it's in the 7th round, 224th overall.
Which is precarious, to say the least.
It tells you everything. You are on the edge from day one. You're constantly fighting for your job, for a roster spot, and it really sets the tone for his entire professional career, which was just defined by instability and some profound physical trauma.
Instability is absolutely the key word. Let's really break that down. Over just 6 seasons, from 2010 to 2015, Phillip Adams played for 6 different NFL teams.
Stop and think about that. 6 teams. The 49ers, the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Raiders, the Jets, and the Falcons.
The physical and mental exhaustion of that. Constantly moving, learning a new system, a new playbook.
A new city, new teammates, new coaches. You're never settled. And you're living with the daily fear that you could be cut at any moment. It's an immense psychological burden.
And the physical toll started almost immediately. His time with the 49ers was short, but it's where that severe physical degradation really began.
A brutal initiation is the right way to put it. Late in his rookie season, week 16, he breaks his left ankle.
And how did it happen?
He was doing one of those thankless but critical jobs, blocking on the opening kickoff of the second half, a high-impact, high-speed collision.
And the sources say the injury was severe.
Very severe. It required immediate surgery, including putting several screws into the ankle to hold it together.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is not a minor sprain. This is a foundational skeletal trauma that can change a player's mechanics forever, especially a cornerback, where your ability to cut and change direction is everything.
So that really sets the precedent for his whole career. He's either playing through pain or recovering from some major physical event.
Exactly. And once the 49ers released him in 2011, that professional volatility, the team hopping, it just becomes dizzying.
Especially that period with the New England Patriots. Can you walk us through that? It's hard to even keep track of.
It's a perfect example of the roster turn for a guy on the fringe. So he gets signed by the Patriots on September 21st, 2011.
Okay.
He's then waived cut on October 8th. Then, just 5 days later, they bring him back, re-signed on October 13th.
Only to be released again the very next day.
The very next day, October 14th. Then, just 4 days after that, they re-sign him again.
Unbelievable.
He actually gets his first NFL interception in November with them, but then 8 days after that, he's waived for the final time.
So in about 2 months, he's hired, fired, rehired, fired, rehired, and then cut for good.
All while trying to perform at the highest level, living out of a suitcase, and still recovering from a major ankle surgery. The chronic stress of that,
Yeah.
it's just a core part of this story.
It really makes his final career stats, 78 games, 128 tackles, 5 interceptions, seem less like just numbers and more like markers of survival.
I think that's a perfect way to put it. But the most alarming details, the ones that connect directly to what was discovered later medically, they come from his time with the Oakland Raiders.
That was from 2012 to 2013.
Correct. He played in all 16 games in 2013, which is a testament to his toughness. But it's the 2012 season that provides this devastating clue about the brain trauma he was enduring.
What happened?
During that year, the sources confirmed Phillip Adams suffered 2 concussions over a 3-game span.
Wait, say that again? 2 concussions in 3 games.
2 concussions in 3 games. It's a detail that is just impossible to ignore.
For a listener who might not grasp the full medical weight of that, what does that specific sequence imply?
It implies a catastrophic failure of the brain to heal. When you get a concussion, the brain is vulnerable, it's inflamed, it's metabolically stressed, to return to high contact play that quickly and then get another concussion almost immediately.
You're hitting an already injured organ.
Precisely. The second impact hits a brain that has had no time to recover its baseline function. It dramatically increases the risk of long-term permanent structural damage. It's not just 2 separate hits, it's 2 hits compounded by a lack of recovery.
And this is the exact definition of the kind of repetitive trauma that we now know leads to CTE.
It is, especially for his position, cornerback, and a special teams player. He's involved in high-speed collisions constantly, in practice and in games. His total exposure to these kinds of hits was incredibly high.
So we have the professional instability, the major ankle surgery, and now this period of rapid compounding head trauma. That gives us the context for what happens next, the end of his career and the decline that people around him started to notice.
Yes. By 2015, he plays his final season with the Atlanta Falcons. After that, his professional career just stops.
But he didn't just walk away voluntarily, right?
Yeah.
The sources say he did try to make a comeback.
He did. He had a workout with the Kansas City Chiefs in April 2016, but it didn't lead to a contract.
And the source material has a specific and really telling anecdote from around this time.
It does. It's a moment that seems to capture his mental state as his career was evaporating. And it points to something beyond just physical decline. It suggests a sort of psychological or neurological disengagement.
You're talking about the Indianapolis Colts tryout story?
Yes. The Colts called him during their 2016 training camp. This was a real chance, a lifeline back into the league. They invited him to come to practice the very next day.
And what happened?
He missed his flight.
He missed his flight to a tryout.
He made it to the airport in Charlotte, but the flight had already left. And his former agent gave a statement about it that is just... it's incredibly profound in retrospect.
What did he say?
The agent said, I could tell his head was not in it. He'd given up on it.
Wow. His head was not in it.
Yeah.
For an NFL hopeful, missing that flight is... it's unimaginable. It suggests a really deep internal struggle.
It's a stark marker. Think about it. The person who endured 6 teams in 6 years, who fought through that Patriots roster chaos, who came back from major surgery, that person was gone.
Right.
The focused, driven athlete was now unable to do the basic task of catching a flight to save his career.
So when we hear that quote, His head was not in it, and we layer on the 2 concussions in 3 games.
You can infer that the trauma was now manifesting as something else. Maybe profound apathy, disengagement, what doctors call executive dysfunction. The physical decline had translated into a severe mental one.
Really frames the end of his football career not as a choice, but as a kind of surrender forced by this combined weight of physical and mental damage.
Exactly. The lights went out on his professional life, and it left him without the structure, the purpose, the identity that elite sport provides. And that really sets the stage for the inexplicable horror that was to come.
We're now going to discuss the events of April 2021. And this requires the utmost sensitivity. We want to be very clear and express our deepest, most profound sympathy for the victims of this horrific attack and for their families.
Yes. For Dr. Robert Leslie, his wife Barbara, their grandchildren Ada and Noah, and the 2 technicians, James Lewis and Robert Shook, an unimaginable loss.
We are reporting these facts from the source material solely to provide the necessary context for the medical findings that followed these events.
And we will adhere strictly to the sequence of events as they are documented. The incident took place on April 7th, 2021 in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Adams' hometown.
His hometown. The documentation confirms that Adams went to a home and shot 6 people. 5 of the victors were killed at the scene.
And the 6th victim.
The 6th victim, James Lewis, was severely wounded and tragically died from his injuries 3 days later, on April 10th.
And a standoff with law enforcement began pretty quickly after the shooting.
It did. The next day, April 8th, during that standoff with the York County Sheriff's Office, Phillip Adams fatally shot himself.
The sources provide some detail about that standoff, right?
They do. They detail the attempts by police to de-escalate. Adams' mother was actually inside the home with him at first, but she was safely removed by the authorities.
And they tried to communicate with him.
Yes, they used a loudspeaker. They even sent a robot into the house. It was a clear, desperate effort to try and coax him out before he took his own life.
But what stands out and what the authorities pointed to almost immediately was one crucial contextual detail.
Yes, that Phillip Adams had absolutely no prior criminal record.
Why is that fact so essential to understanding this tragedy?
Because it completely changes the investigative lens. When there's an act of mass violence like this, authorities immediately look for a pattern, a history of criminal acts, domestic violence, escalating aggression.
And in this case, there was nothing.
Nothing. The absence of a criminal record suggests that whatever triggered this, this extreme violence, it wasn't rooted in a long-standing pattern of antisocial behavior. It points to a radical, acute change in his behavior.
Something that demands an explanation outside of normal criminal profiling.
Exactly. An explanation that ultimately leads directly to the brain. The shock of this event was so profound because it seemed to come from nowhere.
And that search for an explanation brings us directly to the posthumous medical findings that provide this horrifying context for the violence.
Yes. And it's important to note that even before the official science came in, his own father, Alonzo Adams, publicly said he believed football was responsible. He said the game messed him up.
A father's intuition that was tragically confirmed by science.
It was. After his death, his brain was examined by neuropathologists, and he was officially diagnosed with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE.
And can you break down what CTE is in accessible terms? What is actually happening inside the brain?
Of course. So inside your brain, you have neurons, and they have an internal structure, sort of like the steel beams in a building. That structure is stabilized by a protein called tau. When the brain experiences repeated hits, that mechanical stress damages the tau protein. It misfolds and starts to clump together into these toxic tangles.
And these tangles are the problem.
They are the problem. They spread through the brain almost like a slow-motion fire, and they kill off the brain cells. CTE is essentially the progressive death of brain tissue caused by these toxic tau tangles accumulating over years.
And the key detail from the source material about Adams' specific diagnosis was the severity.
The severity. His case was described as unusually severe. Now, that's not just a casual term. In this field, CTE is often staged from stage 1, the mildest, to stage 4, the most severe.
So unusually severe would suggest what?
It would suggest a very advanced stage, likely stage 3 or 4, with a widespread, dense accumulation of that toxic tau protein throughout his brain.
And in those advanced stages, which parts of the brain are most affected? And how does that translate to behavior?
The tau tangles in advanced CTE often cause devastating damage to the frontal lobes. That's the part of the brain right behind your forehead.
Which is responsible for?
It's your executive control center. It governs impulse control, judgment, emotional regulation, planning, and aggression. When the frontal lobe is severely compromised by this disease, an individual who previously had perfectly intact judgment can exhibit, well, profound behavioral changes.
Paranoia, impulsivity.
Paranoia, impulsivity, explosive aggression. The sources position this severe, advanced brain damage as the underlying pathology that manifested in that final, tragic act of violence.
And this diagnosis puts him in a much broader and, frankly, deeply troubling context.
It does. The source material notes he is one of at least 345 former NFL players to be diagnosed with CTE after death.
An epidemic, really.
And the research cited in our sources is helping us better understand what drives the disease. It's not just about the number of hits someone takes.
It's about the force.
It's about the cumulative force of those head impacts, the intensity. One high-speed, high G-force collision does more damage than many small bumps.
Which brings us right back to Phillip Adams' specific career. A cornerback, and especially a special teams player.
Exactly. His job, particularly on special teams, guaranteed repetitive exposure to those high G-force impacts. Tackling, blocking at full speed.
And when you combine that general exposure with the specific documented trauma of 2 diagnosed concussions in just 3 games.
You have a recipe for a rapid, compounded accumulation of severe trauma. The unusually severe pathology found in his brain is tragically consistent with the kind of cumulative force a player in his position would be expected to endure.
So it creates this narrative where the damage from his career, this hidden neurological decay, was progressing silently for years.
It seems so. The paradox of a man with no history of violence committing such an act is, it's answered by the scientific reality of a severe degenerative brain disease.
The CTE diagnosis is presented by the sources as the central critical variable connecting his football career to the tragedy.
Yes, it highlights the devastating reality that while you can see a broken ankle on an X-ray, the neurological damage is invisible. It's hidden until it manifests in the most catastrophic ways imaginable.
Let's just review that entire arc one more time. We start with a talented, ambitious athlete. He navigates 6 incredibly unstable and stressful seasons in the NFL.
During which he endures not just a major career-altering ankle injury, but specific, documented, rapid-onset head trauma.
2 concussions in 3 games.
Right. Then his career ends not with a clear choice, but with what appears to be a mental disengagement, a kind of apathy, as described by his own agent.
And all of that culminates in a horrific act of violence, which is then followed by the posthumous revelation of advanced, unusually severe chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
The sources present a clear, tragic timeline. The knowledge here is that the career instability and the physical trauma are directly linked to a medical diagnosis that is positioned as the fundamental explanation for the awful behavioral outcome.
For anyone trying to understand how this could happen, the medical evidence is presented as the indispensable piece of the puzzle.
It absolutely is. It underscores this profound and often hidden connection between the trauma of professional football and the devastating long-term consequences for a player's health.
So that brings us to a really crucial point for reflection. When you take all of these documented facts together, the career, the injuries, the lack of a criminal record, and then this autopsy revealing unusually severe CTE, what does this story ultimately tell us about the hidden physical cost of professional sports?
And maybe more importantly, if we accept this diagnosis as the central explanation that the sources provide, it forces us to ask some very difficult questions about prevention.
What kind of questions?
Well, what specific mandatory protocols should be in place? Should there be robust long-term neurological screening? Should there be mandatory behavioral monitoring for players whose careers are marked by repeated head impacts?
Especially for those players who, like Adams, kind of exist on the high-impact, unstable margins of a roster.
Exactly. Is the current system doing enough to track or mitigate this risk? The facts of this case suggest there's a long way to go. It's a compelling and, frankly, a very sobering thought to consider what responsibility lies where.
The knowledge we've gone through here really compels us to see this tragedy not just as an isolated incident, but as a severe symptom of a systemic neurological risk that appears to be embedded within the sport itself.
I think that's a very fair assessment based on the material we have.
Thank you for joining us for this rigorous exploration of the source material.
We appreciate your willingness to engage with what are some very challenging and sensitive facts.
Thanks for listening.